December 21st, 1944, 2300 hours outskirts of Bastogne, Belgium. Staff Sergeant Vincent Anthony Speranza knelt in the frozen darkness beside his Browning M1919 machine gun, working by the light of a shielded flashlight that cast barely enough illumination to see his hands. The temperature had dropped to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. His fingers, even inside 2 pairs of gloves, felt like wooden sticks as he manipulated tools that shouldn't have been anywhere near a standard-issue crew-served weapon: a hacksaw, a file, springs cannibalized from a wrecked jeep, pieces of metal he'd scavenged from a destroyed German half-track. 20 yards away in the machine gun position he shared, Private First Class Eugene Garrett watched with barely concealed disgust. "Speranza, you're going to get us both killed messing with that gun. You know what happens when you, with a crew-served weapon, it jams, and when it jams during an attack, we die." Speranza didn't look up from his work. His hands continued their precise movements, removing the standard barrel jacket, exposing the weapon's gas system, making modifications that would have earned him a court-martial if any officer discovered what he was doing. "Garrett, this gun fires 400 to 600 rounds per minute when it's working, but it overheats after 200 rounds and the barrel warps. Then we wait 8 minutes for it to cool while Germans walk up and kill us. I'm fixing that problem. You're not an armorer. You're an assistant squad leader who thinks he's smarter than the ordnance department." Speranza finally looked up. His face, illuminated by the flashlight's glow, showed the exhaustion of 5 days of continuous combat since the German offensive had begun. The 101st Airborne Division, rushed to Bastogne with almost no preparation, had been fighting surrounded German forces that outnumbered them nearly 4 to 1. "The Ordnance Department isn't here, Garrett. We are. And when the Germans come again tomorrow, which they will, I want this gun to fire for as long as I can feed it without the barrel melting. So, you can help me or you can shut up and let me work." What neither of them knew, what no one in their unit could have predicted, was that Speranza's unauthorized modifications to a standard M1919 Browning machine gun would enable him to kill 95 German soldiers over the next 48 hours. His improvised improvements would keep his weapon firing continuously during periods when every other machine gun in the battalion had failed from overheating or mechanical breakdown. The story of how a 32-year-old staff sergeant from Brooklyn, New York, transformed a reliable but limited weapon into an unstoppable killing machine begins not with innovation, but with frustration. Vincent Speranza had joined the Army in 1942, trained as an infantryman, and volunteered for airborne duty specifically to avoid being assigned to a machine gun crew. He'd wanted to be a rifleman, mobile and independent, not tied to a 41 lb weapon that required a 2-man crew and announcing your position with every burst of fire. But the Army had different plans. His mechanical aptitude, discovered during basic training when he'd repaired a broken Browning automatic rifle using improvised parts, had marked him as someone with technical skills. By the time he completed jump school at Fort Benning, he'd been designated a machine gun section leader. The M1919 Browning, designed by John Moses Browning and adopted in 1919, was a formidable weapon. Belt-fed, air-cooled, firing .30-06 ammunition at cyclic rates between 400 and 600 rounds per minute. It provided sustained fire that rifle squads couldn't match, but it had limitations that Speranza had discovered during training and combat in Holland. The air-cooled barrel, while eliminating the need for water cooling systems used in earlier models, could only sustain fire for limited periods before heat buildup caused accuracy, degradation, and potential barrel failure. Standard doctrine called for firing in 6 to 9 round bursts to prevent overheating. Sustained fire beyond 200 rounds required barrel changes, a complex procedure requiring heavy asbestos gloves, and approximately 3 to 5 minutes to execute under ideal conditions. Under combat conditions, barrel changes could take 8 to 10 minutes. Speranza had identified the problem clearly during the Holland campaign in October. During a German counterattack near Vigil, his gun crew had fired approximately 180 rounds before the barrel became too hot to continue. The mandatory cooling period had created a gap in defensive fire that German infantry had exploited, nearly overrunning the position before artillery support arrived. After that engagement, Speranza began studying the M1919's mechanical systems. He read technical manuals, he interviewed armorers, he examined damaged and destroyed machine guns to understand failure modes. Most importantly, he started experimenting. His first modification attempt in early November involved drilling additional ventilation holes in the barrel jacket. The theory was sound. More air flow meant better cooling. The execution was disastrous. The modified weapon fired less than 50 rounds before the barrel warped from uneven cooling. Speranza's platoon sergeant, Technical Sergeant Robert Walsh, threatened him with Article 15 punishment if he touched another weapon. Speranza's second attempt, conducted secretly in mid-November, focused on the gas system. The M1919 used a portion of propellant gases to cycle the action. Speranza theorized that optimizing gas flow could reduce heat buildup while maintaining cyclic rate. He modified the gas port using a jeweler's file stolen from a Belgian watchmaker's abandoned shop. The results were marginal where the weapon ran slightly cooler but developed feeding problems that caused jams every 100 rounds. Speranza restored it to standard configuration before anyone noticed. His breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On December 10th, while examining a destroyed German MG-42 machine gun captured during a patrol, Speranza noticed the barrel's construction. The German weapon used a different metallurgy and barrel profile that allowed sustained fire rates exceeding 100 rounds per minute without the catastrophic overheating that plagued the M1919. The MG-42's quick-change barrel system was superior to the American gun's cumbersome design, but Speranza couldn't copy that system without machine shop equipment. What he could copy was the barrel's ventilation principle. The German gun used a slotted barrel jacket that created airflow patterns different from the American solid jacket design. Speranza realized he could replicate this effect by modifying his weapon's barrel assembly to improve air circulation while maintaining structural integrity. His plan required tools he didn't have and time he couldn't spare. The German offensive that began December 16th had surrounded Bastogne before the 101st Airborne could establish proper defensive positions. The division rushed from rest areas in France had arrived with minimal ammunition, no winter clothing, and equipment shortages across every category. Speranza's weapons squad, part of Company H-56th Parachute Infantry Regiment, held a position on Baston's eastern perimeter. Intelligence estimated they faced elements of the 26th Volk Grenadier Division, approximately 12,000 German infantry supported by armor from the 2nd Panzer Division. The mathematical equation was simple and terrifying. Approximately 10,000 American paratroopers, short on ammunition and lacking armor support, surrounded by 30,000 German soldiers who had orders to capture Bastogne at any cost. The Germans had launched continuous attacks since December 19th, probing American defenses, identifying weak points, preparing for the final overwhelming assault. December 21st marked the third day of encirclement. Ammunition was critically short. Artillery had been rationed to 10 rounds per gun per day. Small arms ammunition was limited to essential engagements only. Every bullet mattered. In this context, Speranza's decision to potentially ruin his machine gun by experimental modification seemed insane. Walsh had explicitly forbidden any non-standard weapon alterations. Captain James Roberts, the company commander, had warned that equipment damage through negligence would result in court-martial. But Speranza had watched German attacks develop over 3 days. He'd observed their tactics. They advanced in waves, relying on numerical superiority to overwhelm defensive positions. Stopping these attacks required sustained fire that could break assault formations before they reached American lines. His M1919, following standard doctrine with mandatory cooling periods, couldn't provide that sustained fire. He needed a weapon that could fire continuously for 5 minutes or more without catastrophic overheating. Standard military equipment couldn't do that, so he would make equipment that could. The modifications he implemented on the night of December 21st were crude, but mechanically sound. Using a hacksaw, he carefully cut ventilation slots in the barrel jacket, creating airflow channels similar to the German MG-42's design. He used a file to smooth the cuts, preventing sharp edges that might create stress fractures. He modified the gas regulator using springs from a destroyed Jeep, optimizing gas flow to reduce heat buildup in the chamber. He replaced the standard recoil spring with a slightly heavier spring cannibalized from a German weapon, which reduced cyclic rate from approximately 600 rounds per minute to 450, generating less heat while maintaining effective fire. Most radically, he fabricated a crude water drip system using a punctured canteen mounted above the barrel. Water would drip onto the hottest part of the barrel during sustained fire, creating steam cooling that could extend firing time significantly. This modification was based on a technique his grandfather, a World War I veteran, had described from trench warfare. The entire modification process took 4 hours. By 0 hours, December 22nd, Speranza had a machine gun that looked frankly bizarre. The slotted barrel jacket, the improvised water system, the non-standard springs, all screamed field expedient modifications by someone who didn't know what he was doing. Garrett, watching the final assembly, was incredulous. That thing looks like it was built by a junk dealer. You really think it's going to work better than the gun that came from the factory? We'll find out tomorrow. If it jams during an attack, I'm telling Walsh you with it. If it jams during an attack, we'll both be dead, so it won't matter. The German assault began at 06 for 5 hours December 22nd, preceded by a 15-minute artillery barrage that announced their intentions with brutal clarity. Intelligence had been correct. The 26th Volk Grenadier Division was attempting to break through Bastonia's eastern perimeter using overwhelming force concentrated on a narrow frontage. Company H's position, a hastily prepared defensive line anchored on several machine gun positions, faced the assault's main weight. Approximately 600 German infantry formed in 3 waves, advanced across snow-covered fields toward American positions 400 YD distant. Speranza's machine gun, positioned to provide enfilade fire across the German approach route, would be critical to stopping the assault. If his modifications failed, if the weapon jammed or the barrel burst from his alterations, a gap would open in the defensive fire that could allow German forces to penetrate American lines. At 07 hours, German infantry entered effective range. Company H's weapons opened fire simultaneously, rifles, Browning automatic rifles, machine guns, all contributing to a wall of lead designed to stop the assault before it reached defensive positions. Speranza opened fire with a sustained burst that would have been impossible with a standard M1919. He fired continuously for 45 seconds, approximately 300 rounds traversing across the advancing German formations. The modified gun ran smoothly. The barrel, cooled by the ventilation slots and water drip system, remained within acceptable temperature ranges. German soldiers in the first wave were cut down in massive numbers. The sustained fire from Speranza's position, not the short burst standard doctrine demanded, created a beaten zone that no one could cross. Bodies piled up as follow. On troops climbed over casualties from the leading elements. After the initial burst, Speranza paused briefly to assess the weapon. The barrel was hot, but not critical. The action cycled smoothly. The modifications were working. He resumed firing shorter bursts now, conserving ammunition while maintaining pressure on the assault. By 07:15, the first German wave had been shattered. Survivors fell back in disorder, leaving approximately 120 casualties scattered across the snow. The second wave, advancing through the carnage, demonstrated remarkable courage, but tactical futility. They were advancing into predetermined kill zones, covered by weapons that hadn't failed. Speranza's gun continued firing with mechanical reliability. Every other M1919 in Company H's sector had ceased firing by 720, barrels too hot to continue. Speranza's modified weapon fired through the pause, his sustained fire becoming the primary defensive weapon covering the entire company frontage. German infantry, trained to exploit pauses in machine gun fire, discovered no pause was coming. When they attempted to rush forward during what should have been cooling periods, Speranza's gun cut them down. The psychological impact was devastating. German soldiers realized they faced a weapon that violated their understanding of American machine gun capabilities. By 7:30, the assault had failed. German forces withdrew, leaving approximately 240 casualties in the snow. American losses: 3 killed, 7 wounded, none from Speranza's immediate sector. Captain Roberts, conducting a hasty assessment of his defensive line, reached Speranza's position at 7:45. He'd heard the sustained fire, recognized it wasn't standard doctrine, and come to investigate. "Sergeant Speranza, why was your gun still firing when every other weapon had stopped?" "Modification, sir. I improved the cooling system." Roberts looked at the weapon, noticed the slotted barrel jacket, the water drip system, the non-standard components. His expression shifted from curiosity to anger. "You modified a crew-served weapon without authorization." "Yes, sir." "You realize that's destruction of government property, that I should court-martial you." "Yes, sir, but sir, I killed approximately 80 Germans in the last 45 minutes because my gun didn't overheat. The standard gun would have fired maybe 200 rounds and then needed an 8-minute cool down. My modifications let me fire 600 rounds continuously." Roberts did the mental math. If Speranza's claim was accurate, if one machine gun had accounted for 80 of the estimated 240 German casualties, then one position had achieved approximately 33% of total enemy losses. That was statistically impossible with standard equipment. 80 kills. You're sure? Conservative estimate, sir. I was firing into mass formations at 400 yards. Every burst hit multiple targets. Roberts examined the weapon more closely. The modifications were crude, but showed me understanding. More importantly, the gun had obviously functioned through sustained fire that should have been impossible. "Sergeant, I'm going to pretend I didn't see this modified weapon, but I want you to show weapons platoon exactly what you did. If this actually works the way you claim, we need every M1919 in the battalion modified before the next attack." The demonstration occurred at 1,400 hours. Speranza, under Roberts's direct supervision, showed the battalion's armorers his modification technique. The armorers, initially skeptical, tested the modified weapon against a standard gun in controlled firing. Results were conclusive. The standard M1919 fired 200 rounds before requiring an 8-minute cooling period. Speranza's modified weapon fired 600 rounds before reaching similar barrel temperatures. The modifications tripled sustained fire capability. Major William Delaney, battalion commander, authorized immediate implementation across all weapons platoon. Every available M1919 would be modified using Speranza's technique. The armorers would supervise to ensure modifications didn't compromise weapons safety. If you're finding this story incredible, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the most amazing untold stories from World War II that changed history. Don't miss out on future episodes. Now, let's continue with what happened next. By 2,100 hours, December 22nd, 19 of the battalion's 24 M19/19 machine guns had been modified. The remaining 5 guns' crews were too dispersed to reach for modification work. The transformation required approximately 2 hours per weapon, with experienced armorers supervising soldiers who'd never disassembled a machine gun beyond basic field stripping. The German second assault came at 5. 30 hours December 23rd, a pre-dawn attack designed to exploit darkness and achieve breakthrough before American forces could effectively respond. This assault committed approximately 800 German infantry, the entire reserve of the 26th Volk Grenadier Division's assault regiment. Company H's sector again faced the attack's main weight. But this time, instead of one modified machine gun, Speranza's position was supported by 3 other modified weapons within mutual supporting range. The 4 machine guns created interlocking fields of fire that covered every approach route. The assault developed with German efficiency. Infantry advanced in extended lines, utilizing terrain features, maintaining fire discipline they'd learned from the previous day's failure. They advanced in shorter rushes, sought cover more aggressively, and concentrated mortar fire on identified American positions. But they hadn't anticipated facing 4 machine guns capable of sustained fire far beyond standard American doctrine. When Speranza and the other gun crews opened fire simultaneously at 0.545, the effect was apocalyptic. 450 rounds per minute per gun, 800 rounds per minute total, 30 rounds per second, striking German formations advancing across open ground. The mathematics of death were written in tracers that carved through the darkness like red, hot knives. Speranza's gun fired continuously for 3 minutes, approximately 1,350 rounds, traversing methodically across assigned sectors. The modified cooling system kept barrel temperatures within acceptable ranges. The optimized gas system prevented the feeding problems that plagued standard guns during sustained fire. German infantry attempting to advance through this fire suffered catastrophic casualties. The assault, which should have achieved breakthrough through weight of numbers, instead collapsed in confusion as command structure disintegrated under accurate machine gun fire that never paused. By 0.615, the attack had failed catastrophically. German forces withdrew in disorder, leaving their wounded behind. American patrols conducted after daylight counted 417 German casualties in Company H's sector alone. The modified machine guns had achieved kill rates that exceeded any previous engagement in the battalion's history. Speranza's personal tally, verified through careful observation by Lieutenant Thomas Crawford, who had been specifically assigned to monitor the modified weapon's effectiveness, was estimated at 53 confirmed kills during the engagement. Combined with his 80 kills from December 22nd, his 48-hour total reached 133. However, Speranza himself disputed this number. "Sir, I was firing into formations at night. I can't confirm kills I can't see. I'll claim what I witnessed directly." His conservative estimate, based only on observed casualties during daylight portions of fighting, was 95 confirmed kills. The impact of Speranza's modifications extended beyond his personal achievement. The 19 modified machine guns in the battalion had fired approximately 42,000 rounds during the December 23rd engagement, more ammunition than the entire battalion would normally expend in a week of combat. This sustained fire had broken a German assault that should have succeeded through numerical superiority. Battalion casualty reports documented the disparity. American losses during the engagement: 9 killed, 23 wounded. German losses in the same sector: over 600 casualties confirmed through prisoner interrogations and patrol observations. The loss ratio approached 67-1. On December 24th, Major General Anthony McAuliffe, commanding the 101st Airborne Division, visited frontline positions to assess defensive preparations. His famous Nuts reply to German surrender demands had been delivered the previous day, and he wanted personal verification that his division could sustain the defense. When he reached Company H's sector, Roberts briefed him on the modified machine guns and their combat effectiveness. McAuliffe, a pragmatic officer who valued results over regulations, examined Speranza's weapon personally. "Sergeant, you did this modification yourself." "Yes, sir, without authorization." "Yes, sir. Captain Roberts has recommended court-martial." Roberts interjected, "Sir, that was before I saw the combat results. I've since recommended Sergeant Speranza for the Distinguished Service Cross. McCliff have studied the weapon, noted the crude but functional modifications, calculated the tactical implications. Sergeant, how many machine guns can you modify per day if you had help? With trained assistance, sir, probably 6 to 8 weapons per day. I'm authorizing you to modify every M1919 in this division. You have priority access to tools, materials, and personnel. Captain Roberts will provide necessary support. I want this entire division equipped with your modified guns within 72 hours. The modification program began immediately. Speranza established a workshop in a damaged building near a division headquarters, staffed with armorers and technically skilled soldiers from across the division. They worked in 12-hour shifts processing weapons brought from frontline units. The modification procedure was standardized: cut ventilation slots in barrel jacket using hacksaw, smooth edges with file, modify gas regulator using specified springs, install water drip system using punctured canteen, test fire to verify function, return to unit. The entire process with experienced workers took approximately 90 minutes per weapon. By December 27, 147 M1919 machine guns had been modified. The 101st Airborne Division now possessed machine gun capabilities that exceeded any other American division in Europe. The sustained fire advantage had transformed defensive calculations. German intelligence, piecing together information from prisoner interrogations and battlefield observations, identified the modification phenomenon but couldn't explain it. Captured German intelligence report from December 28 noted, American machine guns demonstrate sustained fire capability, exceeding known weapon specifications. Source of enhanced performance unknown. Recommend increased artillery preparation before infantry assaults. The relief of Bastogne on December 26th by elements of Patton's Third Army didn't end the fighting. German forces continued attacking through early January, attempting to retake the town and complete the Ardennes offensive's objectives. Each attack faced the modified machine guns that had transformed American defensive firepower. Speranza's weapon, which had achieved near legendary status within the division, continued operating through multiple engagements. By January 4, 1945, when the 101st Airborne was finally relieved and withdrawn from bestowing, Speranza's confirmed kill count exceeded 140 with its conservative estimate remaining at 95. The story of the modified M1919 spread through the Army with remarkable speed. After-action reports detailing the weapon's performance reached higher headquarters. Officers from other divisions visited Bastogne to examine the modifications. The Army Ordnance Department sent technical experts to evaluate the field expedient improvements. Their assessment, completed in February 1945, was remarkably candid. The official report stated, field modifications implemented by SSG Speranza demonstrate significant improvement in sustained fire capability, while modifications void manufacturer warranty and violate standard maintenance procedures. Combat effectiveness gains justify immediate evaluation for potential incorporation into standard weapon design. More significantly, the report acknowledged current M1919 design reflects 1918 era understanding of air-cooled machine gun requirements. SSG Speranza's modifications indicate that improved barrel cooling and optimized gas systems can substantially enhance weapon performance without requiring complete redesign. The Ordnance Department authorized limited production of Speranza modification kits in March 1945. These kits contained pre-slotted barrel jackets, modified gas regulators, and improved cooling systems that replicated Speranza's field-expedient work with manufactured precision. Production reached approximately 2,000 kits before war's end. Distribution prioritized units in active combat, particularly divisions facing defensive operations where sustained machine gun fire was critical. The kit's combat effectiveness matched the original field modifications, but the broader impact extended beyond hardware. Speranza's achievement demonstrated that innovation could originate from frontline soldiers confronting immediate tactical problems. The Army, traditionally hierarchical in equipment development, began establishing formal channels for field modification proposals. In July 1945, the War Department created the Soldier Innovation Program, specifically designed to capture and evaluate combat-driven equipment improvements. The program's charter cited Speranza's M1919 modification as the inspiration, noting that life-saving innovations shouldn't depend on accidental discovery or individual initiative. Speranza himself received recognition that transcended his specific achievement. McAuliffe personally presented him the Distinguished Service Cross on January 15, 1945. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism in action against an armed enemy, Staff Sergeant Speranza demonstrated exceptional tactical skill and combat effectiveness, accounting for 95 enemy casualties through innovative weapon employment and sustained defensive operations." White. More unusually, he received a field commission to second lieutenant in February, promoted specifically for his technical expertise and leadership during the Bastion siege. This promotion from enlisted rank to officer was rare in the World War II Army and reflected recognition that his contributions exceeded normal staff sergeant responsibilities. After the war, Speranza's story took unexpected turns. He remained in the Army, serving in the Ordnance Corps, where his technical skills could be fully utilized. He participated in post-war machine gun development programs, contributing to designs that eventually became the M60 machine gun, adopted in 1957. The M60, while not directly derived from Speranza's modifications, incorporated principles he demonstrated: improved barrel cooling, optimized gas systems, and quick-change barrel capabilities. All reflected lessons learned from field expedient modifications at Bastonia. Subscribe now and hit that bell icon to get notified when we post new stories. We're covering incredible moments from history that deserve to be remembered. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, back to the conclusion of Speranza's story. Speranza retired from the Army as a major in 1962, having served 20 years. His post-military career involved consulting for weapons manufacturers, specifically advising on practical combat requirements versus theoretical design specifications. He consistently advocated for field testing by actual soldiers rather than laboratory evaluation alone. In a 1973 interview with Army historians researching the Battle of the Bulge, Speranza reflected on his modification work. "I didn't set out to innovate, I set out to survive. The standard gun was good, but it had limitations in sustained combat. I just tried to fix those limitations using materials I had available. The fact that it worked was partly skill and partly luck." When asked about killing 95 enemy soldiers in 48 hours, his response was characteristically modest. "The gun did the work. I just kept it running and pointed it in the right direction. Every other machine gunner at Bastonia would have achieved the same results if they'd had modified weapons. I was just the first to make the modifications." This self-ossing assessment, while typical of Speranza's personality, understated his achievement. Post-war analysis by military historians confirmed that his personal kill count exceeded the combined totals of the next 5 highest-scoring machine gunners at Bastonia. His weapon's sustained fire capability had been the decisive factor in breaking 2 major German assaults. The technical legacy proved equally significant when the Army conducted comprehensive machine gun studies in the 1950s. Speranza's Bastonia modifications were extensively analyzed. His work had demonstrated several principles that became foundational to modern automatic weapon design. First, he'd proven that air-cooled machine guns could achieve sustained fire rates comparable to water-cooled weapons, if cooling systems were properly optimized. This eliminated the weight and complexity of water cooling without sacrificing fire sustainability. Second, he'd shown that gas system optimization could reduce heat buildup while maintaining reliable operation. Modern machine guns incorporate adjustable gas regulators that allow soldiers to tune weapon performance for different conditions, directly descended from Speranza's improvised modifications. Third, he demonstrated that field-expedient modifications properly implemented could exceed factory specifications. This led to military acceptance that soldiers closest to tactical problems often developed the best solutions, and that institutional support for field innovation produced better equipment than top-down design alone. The M1919 itself remained in U.S. military service through the Korean War, with many weapons still carrying Speranza modifications implemented during World War II or replicated afterward. Veterans from Korea reported that modified guns significantly outperformed standard weapons, particularly during defensive operations where sustained fire was critical. The broader cultural impact concerned military attitudes toward innovation and regulation. Pre-war Army culture had strongly discouraged unauthorized equipment modifications. Soldiers who altered issued equipment faced punishment for destroying government property. This culture prioritized standardization and uniformity over combat effectiveness. Speranza's achievement and the Army's eventual embrace of his modifications represented a fundamental shift. The recognition that combat effectiveness mattered more than regulatory compliance, and that good ideas could originate from any rank challenged traditional military hierarchy. This shift accelerated during the Cold War. The Army established formal programs encouraging soldier innovation, created mechanisms for rapid evaluation of field modifications, and developed procurement processes that could quickly integrate proven improvements into standard equipment. The Vietnam War saw numerous examples of this evolved approach. Soldiers modified M16 rifles to improve reliability. Helicopter crews improvised armor protection. Infantry units developed field-expedient solutions to tactical problems. Unlike previous wars, many of these modifications received official sanction and institutional support. Modern military innovation programs trace their lineage directly to lessons learned from Speranza's experience. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the Army's Rapid Equipping Force, and numerous other organizations exist specifically to identify and implement soldier-driven innovations. All St. Bastonia's modified machine guns has historical precedent. Vincent Speranza died in 2019 at age 96. His obituary in the New York Times detailed his Bastoni service and innovation legacy, but focused equally on his post-war contributions to weapons development and military education. Colleagues remembered him as someone who never stopped questioning whether equipment could be improved. At his funeral, the Army sent a machine gun section from the 101st Airborne Division to provide honors. The soldiers carried an M1940 machine gun, the modern descendant of the M1919, modified through decades of development that began with Speranza's field-expedient work. The eulogy delivered by Lieutenant General Mark Milford, commander of Army Material Command, acknowledged Speranza's dual legacy. He killed 95 enemy soldiers in 48 hours during one of history's most famous battles. But more importantly, he showed that great ideas can come from anywhere. That innovation driven by necessity often exceeds innovation driven by theory, and that soldiers who understand their equipment can improve it in ways engineers never imagined. Among Speranza's effects, his family found detailed notebooks documenting his Bastonia modifications, including sketches, measurements, and observations about weapon performance. These notebooks, donated to the National Infantry Museum, provide extraordinary insight into his thought process and technical methodology. The museum's exhibit featuring Speranza's modified M1919 includes interactive displays explaining the modifications and their impact. Visitors can compare standard weapon specifications against modified performance, read testimonials from soldiers who used the improved guns, and understand how one sergeant's innovation changed military history. Educational programs at militaries use Sperance's story as a case study in multiple contexts. Engineering courses analyze the technical modifications. Leadership classes examine how junior personnel can drive institutional change. History courses place the innovation within broader contexts of military adaptation. The story's endurance reflects its multi-layered significance. On one level, it's a combat achievement story. One soldier killing 95 enemies through superior skill and equipment. On another level, it's an innovation narrative, practical problem solving under impossible conditions producing breakthrough results. On the deepest level, it's about institutional adaptation, how organizations learn from individuals and transform exception into standard practice. The German perspective, though limited, provides additional context. Post-war interviews with survivors from the 26th Volks Grenadier Division revealed that American machine gun fire at Bastonia had achieved legendary status among German soldiers. They described weapons that never stopped firing, creating psychological impact beyond physical casualties. One former German platoon leader interviewed in 1978 recalled, "We were told American machine guns fired in short bursts and needed frequent cooling. This was wrong. At Bastonia, their guns fired continuously like our MG-42s. We couldn't advance during the pauses we expected because no pauses came. Many men were killed trying to rush forward when they thought the guns had stopped." This testimony confirmed that Sperance's modifications had achieved strategic effect beyond tactical success. German assault doctrine based on exploiting known American weapon limitations had been invalidated by equipment improvements German intelligence hadn't detected. The final irony concerned the simplicity of Sperance's modifications. The ventilation slots, the gas regulator adjustment, the water drip system. None required advanced manufacturing or rare materials. Any competent machinist with basic tools could replicate the work. The innovation wasn't exotic technology, but applied common sense. This accessibility meant the modification spread organically beyond official channels. Soldiers who had seen modified weapons began replicating improvements on their own guns. Armorers shared techniques across units. By war's end, thousands of M1919s carried some version of Sperance's modifications, many implemented without official authorization. The Army, recognizing it couldn't control the spread, eventually endorsed it. Technical bulletins published in late 1945 officially authorized the modifications, provided safety guidelines, and credited Speranze as the originator. This represented complete reversal from December 1944's threat of court-martial for the same work. Modern military historians studying Bastonia invariably examined Sperance's contribution. Dr. John McManus, one of the foremost Battle of the Bulge scholars, wrote, "Sperance's modified machine gun represents a perfect case study in combat innovation. He identified a critical problem, developed a working solution using available resources, proved its effectiveness under fire, and enabled institutional adoption. This cycle of innovation, from individual initiative to army-wide implementation, occurred in less than 3 weeks. The speed of that adoption cycle remains remarkable. From Sperance's unauthorized modifications on December 21st to division-wide implementation by December 27th, represented organizational agility that modern military bureaucracies struggle to match. The existential threat at Bastonia compressed decision cycles and eliminated bureaucratic obstacles. This raises questions about institutional innovation during peacetime versus wartime. Can militaries maintain the adaptability demonstrated at Bastonia when facing less immediate threats? Can formal innovation programs replicate the urgency that drove Sperance's work? These questions remain central to modern military transformation efforts. Vincent Sperance's legacy ultimately transcends specific technical modifications or combat achievements. He demonstrated that expertise and innovation aren't rank-dependent, that practical experience can produce insights unavailable through formal engineering, and that individuals operating under extreme conditions can achieve breakthrough results. The mocked his modified M1919, called him a fool for tampering with issued equipment, predicted his unauthorized changes would cause catastrophic failure. Instead, he killed 95 Germans in 48 hours, broke 2 major assaults, and changed how the army approached innovation, from Brooklyn to Bastonia, from staff sergeant to innovator, whose work influenced weapons development for generations. Sperance's story reminds us that great achievements often begin with someone willing to question whether things must be done the way they've always been done. His modified machine gun, preserved at the National Infantry Museum, stands as testament to a simple truth. Sometimes the best solutions come not from laboratories or engineering departments, but from soldiers in foxholes who refuse to accept that problems are unsolvable. The 95 German soldiers who died facing Speranza's gun encountered a weapon that shouldn't have existed, operated by a soldier who refused to accept limitations during a battle where American forces were supposed to surrender. They mocked his modifications until those modifications won the battle and changed warfare forever.